Oh, hey, buddy. Let's talk about 4.5. Is it 4.5 or 4.4? Wow, way to start off the lesson on a high note, Brock. Hey, I was right. It is 4.5. We're going to break up 4.5 into two parts because, as you can see, the first part is a lot of stuff, and the second part is a lot of stuff. Okay, so there's four learning targets in this thing, and we're going to hit the first two here. I will say I'm going to have to move fast through this to get everything covered. So make sure you pause the video if you need to, jot down the notes. And also remember that I'm updating the PowerPoints in the Unit 4 resources folder or link on Canvas that you can go back and look at. But just keep in mind, this is the unit exam, and the unit exam counts for a ton of points. Before I take off, I'll say don't forget the ACT workshops this Friday at 11. You'll have your boy teaching you reading, and at 1 you'll have Miss Harmon teaching you science. And let me see if I have that code. MOH TXJM. And that's the Google Classroom code. To get on, all you have to do, join the Google Classroom and be there on Friday. So I hope to see you there. All right. Already talked about mercantilism. I'm going to remember it's mo money, less problems. And this is a time when the Europeans start running their countries like a business. And the whole point of running a business is to make a profit. It's not about land anymore. It's about wealth. And so what happens is they want to get the raw materials from the Americas, usually by slave labor, right? Bring it to Europe, manufacture it, and then sell it all over the world. And that's where all of these rich European countries that are going to come to dominate the world in the 1800s, this is how they pay for it. And they don't like the idea of buying from one another. So France doesn't want to buy from England. England doesn't want to buy from Spain because there are tariffs. You need to know what a tariff is. A tariff is a tax, an import tax. So they don't want to have to deal with that. They can't make money if they're buying, but they can make money when they're selling. I should have already mentioned the British East India Company, British West India Company, Dutch East India Company, Dutch West India Company. The first thing to know is I don't know how to spell resources. There we go. The first thing to know is that what is the East Indies, or what are the East Indies and what are the West Indies? So it's all based on Columbus didn't know where he was. So when he rolled up in the Caribbean, he's like, the Indies, thinking it's like Indonesia. And after a while, Amerigo Vespucci finds out, this is a whole different side of the planet. We're calling these the we're calling these the Indies, but really they're not. Let's just call them the West Indies. And then over in Indonesia, we will call that the East Indies. Instead of, figuring out what the name is of the Caribbean, they just kept Columbus's name for it, and they look at it as East and West. So we're going to have England in like Jamaica, the Virgin Islands. That's where they're going to make a lot of their money in the West Indies. And the Dutch are going to have a lot more power in the East Indies, and we'll talk more about that. But basically, you need to know that the reason it's called the British East India Company, it's not because a guy from England is there doing it. It's that a guy working for the British government is doing it. And we talked about royal charters and royal monopolies before, but I just want to hit on this really quick so you're reminded. And I think this is actually the slide that I used. Remember, the monopoly is you're in control of the entire market. No one's there to compete with you. And how can I make that happen? Well, I'm here for the Dutch government, and I have ships with cannons. Now, this is where you get all those fun pirates and Johnny Depp swinging around on a rope and all this stuff. And because the pirates are outlaws, they don't have the royal charters, the contract with the government, and so they're robbing and stealing and doing all that fun stuff. Okay, so let's first talk about Dutch. Okay, the Dutch is the Netherlands. Okay, for our purposes. And so they are going to go and get those spices that Columbus is looking for. And they're dealing with the East Indies, like, again, Indonesia and those islands around there. A lot of times they would enslave the natives, starve them to death, or enslave them. And they would, so they don't use African slaves as much as the rest of the Europeans do. They actually bring settlers there. And so here is a fun thing: nutmeg. So sugar is the slave crop, okay? Nutmeg is the slave spice. And it's interesting because we eat things with nutmeg at Christmas. And the reason we do that is because back in the day, nutmeg was super rare. And so if you could put nutmeg on something you're eating, that means you're a very fancy boy. And because these people love them some Jesus, right? On Jesus's birthday, we bust out the good stuff. And that's carried over today. Today, like, we still have nutmeg during the holidays, even though nutmeg is cheap now. So, yeah, killed the economy, impoverished the people, right? Let's talk about the British going over into Asia. Well, they go to India, okay? And I did spell couldn't right. I don't know, why does it do that? Couldn't. No, oh, perfect. Nailed it. PowerPoint. Way to go. So when they roll into India, there's still the Mughal Empire there. So they can't just take over, because the Mughal Empire, remember, is a gunpowder empire, and they got big bombs. Well, not bombs, cannons. And they're pirating Mughal ships out in the Indian Ocean. And the reason they are in India and not on those really good spice islands is the same reason they had to get New England and Virginia and North Carolina, because they were dealing with their own drama to get out, while the rest of Europe was out conquering islands. And then whenever we talk about the British East India Company, it is cotton, okay? And I know what you're saying. You're like, cotton, that's Alabama. Well, it is, but that's kind of a very narrow view of the global economy, because India is going to make a ton of cotton. And if you remember back when we were talking about the Mughal Empire, it's people who are in opposition to the Mughal Empire that invite the British in. And when the British are invited into the mainland, then it gets interesting, and they're going to topple. They're going to topple the Mughal Empire, and then they're going to take over. I call India colony number 14 because, and actually, it's a more effective colony because they keep it for a whole lot longer, until the 1940s, to be exact. And just know that they have to start on these little coastal cities, and as they take those over, they get stronger and richer. All right. So Indonesia. In Indonesia, it's about bulk items. A lot of it is spices. And the British and the Dutch are both in Indonesia. The thing you need to know is that they both colonized. And to colonize means to bring a colony there, right? To basically bring white people and let them settle there, right? That's why they call them the 13 colonies. So both the Dutch and the British did this. And as we're looking forward, the Dutch are the ones that are going to keep it. The British are going to focus more on India, and Indonesia is going to become a Dutch colony. Okay, so let's go up to Japan and see what's going on. Last we left Japan, it was samurais and daimyos and shoguns and fun stuff. And that's where we still are when the Europeans show up. Europeans are technologically superior, okay? And so the Japanese would love to get their weapons and their ships and all this good stuff. And so because they are fighting, right? All the daimyos are fighting over or different regions in Japan. But when very quickly, this guy named Ieyasu Tokugawa, or if you say it right, Tokugawa Ieyasu, because in Japan the last name comes first. Tokugawa Ieyasu is going to unite Japan. And remember that Japan is heavily influenced on China, and remember that China doesn't want your cheap crap, right? China just wants to make money, and China has this air of superiority, right? And so does Japan. So we got Tokugawa Ieyasu running the entire country now, and so he's like, these white people are dangerous, and he starts to kick them out of the country. He even executes missionaries who are just there to, spread the word. And he has a real problem with Christianity in general. He sees it as an outsider thing that is at odds with traditional Japanese religions such as Shinto. So everybody except the Dutch get out. And the Dutch are going to be under this really strict trade window where they can only come to one port for like 2 weeks a year. And during that time, they can trade with Japan. And then other than that, boom, locked doors. And they're going to lock down from about 1650 to 1850 until a little country called America, knock, 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 comes to the door. And then that gets interesting. And then we're like, oh, here's a reason for World War II, Japan. You're welcome. All right, moving on to the second learning target, continuities and changes in the networks of exchange. All right, so remember a continuity is something that stays the same, and that a change is something that changes. Good. So let's first go to religions. Islam is Islam. They're running the show in Sub-Saharan and Saharan. I'm going to take Sub-Saharan off because it's just most of Africa. And they're still running the Indian Ocean until the Dutch show up, and then the Spanish, and then they get knocked out pretty quickly. Buddhism is spreading into Southeast Asia, like India, Vietnam, Cambodia, down that way. And India keeps Hinduism. All right. Agriculture. The trade in the Indian Ocean is going to continue, but the trade's going to move out to the coast, to the port cities. And the Europeans first are going to work with the leaders of the port cities, but eventually they're going to force them out. And so what I like to think of the port cities is these little flea markets that they would sell all their goods, like, or maybe like a farmer's market where you would come in and buy those goods. But eventually the Europeans take it over. The biggest change as far as trade goes is the Indian Ocean is Unit 3. The Atlantic Ocean is Unit 4. Okay, so from 1450 to 1750, here comes the Atlantic Ocean. And another thing that happens as far as agriculture goes is we're growing tobacco in the Americas. We're growing sugar in the Americas, and all the things that exchanged on the Columbian Exchange. Migration patterns. By the time we get to the 900s, the Hawaiians are going to show up in Hawaii. They're like, oh, finally, we found Hawaii. We've been looking for it for so long. And we talked about the Bantu people who started in northwest Africa and migrated south. They're going to make it to the southeastern coast of Africa and make a very important city called Great Zimbabwe. Now, I know there's a country called Zimbabwe today, but this is not a country, it is a city. And we're going to see a lot of Africans come out to the coast to trade with Europeans. And I'm saying out to the East Coast, to the Indian Ocean. And so there is not the place where most of the slavery happens and the exchange of slaves. That's going to happen over on the West Coast. And the West Coast is not the best coast in this situation. We're going to see, do I have China too? Yeah. So Russia is going to move into Siberia because there is a new thing going on in this time period. Fur, luxurious fur, right? And so in Siberia, there's tons of beautiful animals that people like to murder and then rip their skin off and then wear their skin. And so people start marching east into Siberia to as fur trappers. So there's a plan that the Russian government has that they say, hey, you peasants, would you like some land? And the peasants are like, yeah, we'd love some land. And they say, hey, go that way, get some furs, pay us your furs, and we'll let you have that land as long as you keep giving us fur. And it's kind of like they have fur that they pay for rent. Okay. And so that's a big deal in Russia. And then potatoes. Oh man, these Russians love them some potatoes. But remember, potatoes are not native to Afro-Eurasia. They're an American thing. And maybe something is that some Russians love vodka, and hopefully this will keep you away from vodka. It is fermented potatoes. Someone told me that they're making it out of wheat and other stuff in America. Boo! Don't do that. We need fermented potatoes. Also, bourbon is fermented. Is it corn? I don't know if it's made out of corn. It's nasty. I can tell you that. All right. Over in India, the peasants are making cotton. And it's high quality cotton called muslin. It's not Muslim. And so this really fancy cotton is getting sold back to rich Europeans. China, we've already talked about China making the silk. So check this out. Rich people getting high quality cotton in Europe. Rich people getting high quality silk in Europe. Rich people getting high quality fur in Europe. Do you see how the elites are the wants of the elites are are really fueling a lot of the trade here? Okay, so Spain and Portugal. Oh, that is a misspelling of Philippines. I know how to spell Philippines. Watch. You're welcome. Thank you. So Magellan rolls into the Philippines, and he's like, "Oh, let's name this after my guy, King Philip II." Boom, Philippines. And the Philippines are like east of Asia, and they Spain wants a place to trade. They also want to sign people up for Christianity, right? And so they're in the Philippines. Portugal is going to have Africa. Most of the west coast of Africa, Portugal has exclusive trading rights, and remember that the Portuguese are the first to India, which is where Columbus was trying to go, right? So remember Da Gama, Da Gandhi. The guy was Vasco da Gama, and when we think of India, we can think of Gandhi. And so Spain, remember, Portugal is like the little brother, and Spain's the big brother. And as soon as Portugal gets over here and starts moving and shaking, here comes just boom, 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 Spain, and they're going to knock them out of a lot of that power, and Portugal's going to kind of whimper out. The difference is, though, Portugal running Brazil is huge. So much so that people still speak Portuguese in Brazil. And I will refer you back to the earlier lesson where I showed you the line of demarcation, showing where Portugal is going to get to keep Brazil. Okay. Stuff I've already talked about, the spice trade in the Indian Ocean. We talked about fur trapping in Siberia. I'm going to talk about it in North America here in a hot minute. We'll talk about silver. I talked about silver a little bit, but I'll rehash that for you. All right, so here's Strayer talking about the commerce that's happening in this time period, 1450 to 1750. And remember, Strayer is the author of our textbook, so that's why I'm always quoting him. Thus, commerce joined empire as the twin drivers of globalization during these centuries. Together, they created new relationships, disrupted old patterns, brought distinct people into contact with one another, enriched some, and impoverished or enslaved others. And I would say many others. All right, so why are the Europeans trying to get to Asia? All right, now here's the deal. I already talked about this. All right, so I'm not going to talk about the Muslim middlemen. I'm not going to talk about Columbus and Da Gama. The thing that I do want to talk about is there's this like preacher named Prester John who disappears. And so the Europeans, one of the weird reasons is they think that he's been taken off into Africa, and they're going to look for him. That's just a side note. That won't be on any test. All right. So Portuguese, what happens to them? So the Portuguese they don't trade. They don't have a lot of good stuff to trade. So they're going to trade by force. What does that mean? They roll up to your post. They say, hey, we're getting a cut of everything that is sold here. And they can do that because they have cannons. They have guns. They have boats. They have gunboats. So the Portuguese king is going to call himself, here we go, the Lord of the Conquest, Navigation, and Commerce of Ethiopia, Arabia, Persia, and India. And basically, the Portuguese just show up and take over. Up till 1600, they're going to control about half the trade. But after 1600, Spain's going to show up, England's going to show up, and Portugal's going to go and not matter anymore. The Mughals are going to fight back against the Portuguese, and also in Oman, right? Oman is south of Saudi Arabia in the Indian Ocean in the west corner of the Indian Ocean, and the Omani have boats, and they have I keep calling them boats. They have ships and they have cannons, and so they're going to use that to fight back the Portuguese. And Portugal's like, I don't know, you're done, Portugal. Hit the bricks. All right. These again, this is stuff I talked about earlier. I was supposed to preview it, but I went ahead and taught it. Cotton in India, silk in China. Siberia has has furs. And so this is what I talked about earlier, that the government gave peasants seeds, farm equipment, and grain to say, go settle Siberia. Because remember, Russia is one of those land-based empires. Okay, everybody else is maritime. Well, not everybody else, but the other Europeans are maritime, whereas China and some others are going to be land-based, and that's kind of where we are. Hang on, very time. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Okay, guess who's back? It's me. All right. I'm going to wrap this puppy up pretty quickly. That is the exact same slide about King Philip. Let's talk about metal, okay? The metal that is the biggest deal here, a lot of people say, oh, it's gold. The Spanish got all this gold, which is true. They did get a lot of gold, but they got a lot more silver. And we talked about Peru's silver mine, Potosi, and I'll come back and hit on that too. Japan's silver mines are so small, I don't think you really need to even know about that. But remember, all the rich people in Europe want foreign stuff, and the further away, the better. And so in this situation, they are going to go for Asian spices, Asian silk. And when they do that, they're basically flooding all of the silver into Asia and mostly China. But what did Columbus do that mattered? He connected both worlds, right? The old world and the new world. And so what that means is this is really the first global trade network, okay? Which is what we say here. A direct link between the Americas and Asia. All right, so here's the silver thing. This is one of the learning targets you got to know. All right, 85% of all the silver on the planet Earth was found in Bolivia in the Potosi mines. All right, at the same time, Japan finds their deposit, but it's nothing compared to Potosi. China. So China's getting all this silver because remember, we don't want to trade for your stuff because your stuff sucks, right? Because it's not Chinese. So they start making all Chinese citizens to pay their taxes in silver. That makes silver more valuable. And when silver is more valuable in China, then the foreigners, that's going to benefit the foreigners, the Europeans, and they get a better deal. And so they have to pay less silver for more stuff. And the word here is silver drain. All right. So in China, we have all of the silver coming into China from all over the world, but mostly Bolivia. Okay. I talked about Potosi before. Probably the biggest thing that I remember about Potosi, that silver mine that the Spanish are running, is that when you got drafted to go work in the silver mine at Potosi, a lot of families would hold a funeral for you before you left. So because they assumed you're going to die. I think the number is 20% of people going into Potosi end up dead. which is just bananas, right? Just totally bananas. Sorry, I keep pausing, guys. I am, for some reason, getting the super January allergies. I don't know. Yeah. Also, Strayer calls Potosi a portrait of hell, which is what I call my classes with freshmen. But just kidding. Love the freshmen. All right. So here are some quotes from people who dealt with Potosi. I'll read them off to you, but really think about these quotes. And also, you see these kind of quotes come up on stimuli on the AP exam. All right, here we go. Some 4 years ago, there was discovered a mouth of hell into which great mass of people enter every year and are sacrificed by greed of the Spaniards to their gods, to their god. And this is, man, how come I don't have quotes for this? So I'm pretty sure this is from somebody in Potosi, like a native. Here we go. The Indians enter these infernal pits by some leather ropes like staircases. Once inside, they spend their whole week in there without emerging. If 20 healthy Indians enter on Monday, half may emerge crippled on Saturday. And that was a priest. I know that for sure. And many Indians experience mercury poisoning from the mercury used to refine the silver to make it shiny. Hundreds of thousands, mostly native Indian miners and their families, were poisoned and killed by use of mercury at Potosi. Before the Spaniards arrived, the Incas had already banned the use of mercury for being too toxic. So that's something to know, that the Inca had silver, right? They used silver. Oh, hey, come on in. They used silver. You can leave the door open. They refined silver by using mercury. Oh no, human beings are dying. They found another way to refine it, but it was slower. So when the Europeans show up, they learn about how they used to do it, and then who cares, right? They're not even people, right? So the process of making silver is deadly. And the process of mining silver is deadly. So here I have some of the stuff I showed you guys of Potosi. They called the mountain, this says Cerro de Potosi. What was that word? I think it's Terro Rico, the rich soil or something like that. But you can see how huge the mountain is, and that thing's chock full of silver. I showed you guys this earlier. People having to work naked to get the silver out of the mines, fall down, die. It's bad time. Here we go. Prospetto de Cerro de Potosi. And so you can see like their diagram here. And so mining is scary and dangerous when you have all these safety things in place to protect your miners. They're not protecting the miners in Potosi because they're not Spanish. Here are some random college kids inside Potosi, which I think is really dumb. And they come up on one of the statues that the natives had built inside of there. And as you can see, there's a water bottle here. Here's a liquor bottle. They got a little campfire, what is that, like a torch there. And they got him all dressed up in all this really cool, I don't know, like decoration, right? And so they would come in and they would give offerings to him. His name is Tio. Hang on, I want to tell you his name. Tio Potosi. El Tio, the uncle. Yeah. And so he's there watching over the natives, which is in the mines. But El Tio did not do a good job. Womp womp. And so the silver mines are going to make Spain really rich. Now they're going to lose this because the inflation and the overspending of the government. But for the minute, Spain's going to be the most powerful European country, and that's when they're going to move all of their money into conquest, into military growth. But the thing about inflation is when there's more money, it leads to making the money worth less. And because there's all the silver flowing into Europe, it's going to make silver worth a whole lot less. China. So China versus Japan. In Japan, they're gonna stay isolated, and they're gonna start building up their own economy. They're very concerned about their environment, and they take a lot of care to make sure of that. They whenever they cut a tree down, they plant another tree. But we also are going to see in Japan the population control, and that's having people get being suggested to get married later, contraception, which is methods to not get pregnant, abortion was a thing, and also infanticide. And infanticide is killing babies, which they are born and then they're killed. And so basically, Japan, without knowing this, is going to start making a situation where they're going to be ready for the Industrial Revolution. And you could probably guess that China is not. They're going to kill their forest by making land based on cash crops, mainly silk, and you can't eat silk. And that is where we will end today. Remember to please email me if you have questions or just want to chat. I'll be happy to do that. And also don't forget the ACT preps coming up this Friday at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Later.